Hello everyone. I want to start with this little ticker item because this will likely not get a lot of attention, but I want to bring attention to it. So, Slovakia, who was previously getting Russian gas across Ukraine and then complained when Ukraine turned off the gas flow because, well, it was being invaded by Russia and had no longer any interest to aiding Russia earn money, is now getting gas by another route through Turkey. And there are two problems with it for Slovakia. One, guys, you were so close. You were so close to breaking off your dependency on Russia. You could have done that. Just think, no more meddling in your elections, no more meddling in your politics, no more blackmailing you with, the gas supplies. Two, now there is another problematic state involved. We have Russia, we have Turkey, and that relationship is not the greatest. It tends to go through phases. So, nobody in Slovakian government is going to listen to me. They're going to do what they're going to do. But I think that was not the greatest move, especially since other European allies and Ukraine offered alternatives to help them break off from Russia's gas umbilical cord. Oh well. This is a major story being reported by multiple news sources. A heads up, folks. I'm sure lots of you already noticed that U.S. corporate media had officially sold out to Trump, and most of it has gone to pot. So, to the best of my ability, I'll be using as many of Ukrainian and European sources as I can to get news. So, just letting you know. Usually I make a point to include the logo or the name of the news source somewhere in the screenshot if you want to go and follow up and read that information. Anyway, back to our story. So, how is that working out for you, North Korea? Basically, we already heard last week that they were starting to pull North Korean soldiers away from the front lines, and now it's official. This hasn't just been confirmed by Ukrainians who are dealing with that mess. It's also been confirmed independently by the South Korean intelligence services. So there's this big story on the Guardian website. There's lots in there, lots to unpack. So you can pop over and just read the entire article if you are interested. Basically, it's the culmination of what we have been talking about since North Korean soldiers joined this fight, which they shouldn't have because this has nothing to do with them, and this was not going to end well for them. Basically, once again, and this is the sources acknowledge that this is kind of hard to confirm when it comes to exact numbers. So, we're talking about somewhere between 11 and 12,000 soldiers that were sent. They had no exposure to actual combat. They had no strategic or tactical training of any kind. And of course, there was the language barrier. So, initially, they're saying that about 300 North Koreans have been killed and about 2,700 were wounded. But again, there is that caveat that it is really, really hard to get exact numbers, partly because they tend to kill off their own wounded. So going from wounded to dead could be a very quick process, and nobody's going to report on that because they're going to want to cover that up. Even Putin admitted that situation in the Kursk region is dire, and the shock and awe he was hoping to unleash on Ukrainian troops there did not materialize. They dug in and started bumping off North Korean soldiers, just like they have been bumping off Russian soldiers before that. And this comes to answer some of my earlier questions that I asked, I think, a couple of months ago. as to why Ukrainian troops were still staying in Russia's Kursk region. Because remember, we were talking about like what was the purpose of it? Well, the first purpose was the element of surprise, to say, aha, you're going to attack me on my land? We can play this game too. I'm going to attack you on yours. The second was to have a bargaining chip when it comes to any type of negotiations, land for land. And then the third one was to deliver a message to the Russian people to say, if you think you're immune from this, news item, you're not. So it appears that Ukrainian soldiers there have not been wasting their time, and between that and the HQ, they have been planning another offensive. And just as Russians thought, woohoo, we're going to get some help from North Koreans, we're going to crush them, we're going to sweep them out, they mounted a new offensive. They, basically embarrassed North Korea. And now they were doing something else that is extremely important. Notice what they're talking about. They are promising to form a humanitarian corridor for the civilians in that region to get out safely. That is extremely, extremely important. Here's why. Because nothing like that has been offered by the Russian government or the Russian military in the territories that they're currently occupying in Ukraine or anywhere close. A lot of people have been asking me, like, why can't your parents just get out? There is no way to just get out. Aside from the fact that they have nowhere to go because nowhere in Ukraine is safe, but there are no green corridors. There are no guarantees. And when asked, Russians basically said, we are going to treat any kind of convoy of cars or buses or trucks or whatever as a military operation and bomb it. It doesn't matter if they're carrying civilians who are trying to escape to safety. So, the fact that Ukrainians are offering to Russians in the Kursk region a humanitarian corridor, a way to escape, is huge. And while Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov, whom I hate, claimed that Russia was doing everything it could for Russian civilians in Kursk, that's a lie. Because when that area and other border regions were struck, and that particular area was invaded by Ukrainians, they said it's a local problem and let the local government deal with it. More good news. We are getting the first batch of French Mirage 2000 fighters and some F-16 fighters from Netherlands, which they had committed to delivering last year. So that is very good news indeed. The Ukrainian pilots have been training for this in Europe. So looking forward to see how that's going to change the game. Ukraine had hit another military airfield in Primorsko-Akhtarsk, and that is in the Krasnodar region. That is a good one because that was an airfield that was used to launch Iran's Shahed drones, and we talked about the drones many times. So, more good news. There is a security conference taking place in Munich next week, and Zelensky will be there leading the Ukrainian delegation. I don't know what the result is expected to be or what it will be. We'll have to see. Finally, I want to end with this little ticker item, which is unlikely to get a lot of attention. Another person who spoke out against the war in Ukraine has fallen out of the window during a police raid. Let that sink in. They have some awfully, awfully slippery balconies and windowsills in Russia, don't they?